response question on it, but they certainly can. Civil War. Guys, Civil War makes great free response possibilities. It makes even better multiple choice possibilities. It doesn't usually make a good DBQ. Wars in and of themselves do not make good DBQs. They tend not to do that. Okay? But you look at some of the key figures, Lee and Davis from the South, Lincoln and Grant from the North. Remember George McClellan, who had been hired, fired again by Abraham Lincoln, was a constant irritant. The Anaconda Plan was developed by Winfield Scott. It's the way the North is going to squeeze the life out of the South. Lincoln rejected it at first, but actually that is what was done. Stonewall Jackson was Robert E. Lee's right-hand man. Might have made Gettysburg a little bit different if he had survived to be at that battle, but he was killed shortly before that. Gettysburg is the turning point battle of the Civil War. Big question all the way along was whether or not Britain would aid the South. If she did, that would have turned the tide for the South. Never happened. Lincoln was able to outmaneuver her with things like the Emancipation Proclamation. Would have put Britain in a really bad light because she would have been fighting for the cause of slavery after she had already outlawed slavery about 30 years before. Thing is, with the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, remember that is the name of the town. There is no courthouse in Appomattox Courthouse. So kind of a weird deal. They were at the McLean's farmhouse. Remember the Union soldiers stripped the farmhouse bare after it was all done looking for souvenirs. Right after the war, we got to rebuild the country. Abraham Lincoln wants 10%. Say, I am loyal. Lincoln forgives you. One of the most charitable acts in all the history of man. Congress goes ahead and passes the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. 13th Amendment, no slavery. 14th Amendment is by far the most important of the three. That's the Citizenship Amendment. That is also the amendment that says once you're a citizen, regardless of race, everybody has equal protection under the law. Everybody. That's the basis for the entire civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. 15th Amendment is the Voting Rights Amendment. Remember, Lincoln and the Congress don't get along. Radical Republicans want to punish the South. They have all kinds of ways to do that. We have all kinds of tough times. The South resists with things like the Black Codes. Gets to be an enormous struggle. The North actually brought in military reconstruction by the 1870s, and it's even more expensive, more difficult. The South seems totally unrepentant. The North wants to move on. Finally, we have a disaster in the 76 election. We can't figure out who won, and we cut the compromise. No more military reconstruction, and the Republicans get to have control of the White House. And Reconstruction ends. And so does first semester. Okay. Ready to go first semester or second? Flying. History's flying. Flying. Okay. Here we go. What we're looking at, start with, we can do this in about 5-6 minutes. We want to get up to the 20th century, all right? Gilded Age, 1900s, timeline. We got the problems out west. There we go. And that's one of the issues. The West kind of got put on the back burner after the 1850 compromise, but we've got issues going on. We've got the problems with the Plains Indians, and that's going to result in all kinds of conflict, like the Battle of Little Bighorn. The railroad we're trying to now put across the Union, and that finally happens at Promontory Point in 1869. Lots of resources out there, gold, silver, and land. In fact, Abraham Lincoln knew that. That's why the Homestead Act was passed, and he signed it into law in 1862. Dawes Act is a way to try to deal with the Indians, where they were trying to make the Indians into little white farmers, just like all the other settlers under the Homestead Act. The problem is the Indians don't want to be little white farmers. They want to be Indians. So the resistance continued. We have problems out in the American Southwest between the cattlemen and the sheep herders. They're not getting along very well and actually engaging in feuds. This is getting to be a pretty wild and woolly place. So when you read about the South and cowboys, this is what we're talking about. A lot of things going on the East Coast. Got the robber barons versus the captains of industry. People like Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller. Are they captains of industry? Are they robber barons? Big question today. Matthew Joseph in the historian of the 1930s wrote a lot about that. We've got a lot of urbanization issues because it's brought on through the industrial age, and it has tremendous impact. Overcrowding, pollution, lots of economic opportunity though. So lots of things happening there. Big business trusts are organized as a way to get these guys rolling. It does create lots of economic opportunity, but it also centralizes wealth in the hands of a very few people, contributing to the idea that they're robber barons. Lots of new inventions. Technology is marching on. We've got all kinds of new things in industry. We have the electric light bulb. We've got the development of electricity, which will apply to the industrial age in a little while. And we're starting to look at our economic system in a little bit different way. We had always talked about having laissez-faire economics in America. But in the 1800s, late part of the decade or century, we started talking about social Darwinism, a misapplication of what Darwin had talked about. It was a way to apply racism and classism to what was happening in America. Andrew Carnegie responds with the gospel of wealth, that once you make your big bucks, you have a responsibility from God to give it all back. Horatio Alger was offered up as an inspiration story. Work hard, study, you'll make a few bucks, you'll be successful in America. Farm movement. Farmers begin to specialize more and more as the industrial age encourages them to do that with new technology, tractors, reapers, all kinds of things. That's expensive. Also makes life on the plains more and more lonely because you have to get bigger and bigger farms. The distance between you and your neighbors is going to become larger and larger. It really gets tough. Productivity. Farmers become so productive, and we've reached the point where we are today. No one farms better than the American farmer. Nobody. But big problem is that they are overproductive, and that starts to drop prices, and farmers start to suffer a little bit with that. The farmers try to react with their new populist movement, led by the boy wonder of Nebraska, William Jennings Bryan. He puts forward this idea that we want to try to inflate currency. That's why he gives the famous Cross of Gold speech in 1896 when he ran for the presidency. Remember, this is all an outgrowth of the Granger movement, which had originated in the Midwestern states, like Illinois. The Omaha platform of the populist movement laid this all out. And they also tried to include labor, big cities. But the problem was the difference over the currency. Labor was scared about inflating currency with silver because it meant life conditions, especially their standard of living, would go down. So even though it seems like labor and farmers would have been natural partners in the fight against big business, they separate. The Granger laws get tested and ultimately get denied. The two most famous tests are the Wabash case and the Munn case, which is out of Illinois, is even more famous. And it was the idea of whether or not a state could regulate railroads. And the answer, according to the Supreme Court, ultimately is no, because it's interstate trade. The Constitution is quite clear. Only Congress does that.